You know, since this NWA movie is coming out or has come out, has a lot of people talking about, how NWA, they kind of brought in the gangster rap, and, ever since then that, hip hop has really went down, and everybody's pointing the blame at NWA, for starting this genre of rap. Which you can, I wouldn't say I would solely blame them, because people, we always have to keep in mind and look at the people who's pulling the strings, who's behind them, who's influencing them. Now, NWA, when they came out, they pretty much were teenagers. So I'm pretty sure back then in their mind, they didn't say, okay, you know what, we're going to change rap and we're going to make it all gangster, and this is how it's going to flow for the next 20 something years. But that's not really I want this video to be about, or my main focus. What I want to do is give props, because there were some people back in the day that saw if we promoted or if we kept going down this route in which this type of music was being produced, that what would happen to us, what would happen to the black community, what would happen to those young black impressionable minds. And I think a person who doesn't get enough credit is Delores Tucker. Now, for those people who don't know who Delores Tucker is, she was like an old civil rights leader. And I can still remember, even though I was young, I still remember her coming out at that particular time and taking a stand against gangster rap. And now keep in mind, this was in the mid-90s when gangster rap really started to take off. And I remember her getting on TV and even her telling the black community, saying, look, we can't support this type of music because this is very detrimental to not only young black youth, but just to the image of black people going around the world. And I remember people used to criticize her and blast her, you old lady, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, this and that. And at that point in time, and even though I'm not really big on the civil rights leaders, I have my issues with them. But I remember when she sat down, I can't remember what program, and she kind of gave her explanation of why, this is going to really damage the black community. Even as a young man, that kind of made sense to me when she was saying that this is really going to damage our image as a black people when we're trying to come up. But also noticed at that particular time, you had the record companies really like going after her for speaking out. And nobody really paid attention to it. Some of you people who probably over 30, 35, you kind of can remember, but if you kind of younger than 30, you really don't know who she is. But I'm gonna just go and kind of touch on a couple of points of this whole gangster rap and the era of gangster rap, and how she knew what it was going to do to the black community and young black people. Now I'm gonna go back. This is an article on BBN. This article from back 2012, and it says, Delores Tucker, you were right. What you predicted has come to pass. And we scroll down. In the mid-1990s, Delores Tucker was lambasted and harassed for her voice against gangster rap. Beneficiaries and fans of the insidious music genre attacked her in a song called Her Narrow-Minded and an Old Thinker, as she stood alone in the campaign against lyrics that degraded the black community and its people. Today we are living the outcome of what Miss Tucker used her voice to speak out about and fight fiercely against. At the height of her campaign against gangster rap, Delores Tucker was in her 60s. Now she was in her 60s, and she had some wisdom and saying, you know what, if we let this go, in years to come, it's really going to damage us. And I remember it's just a shame because she got so much pushback from the black community when she was speaking out against gangster rap in the lyrical content. Now, let me scroll down a little bit more. Miss Tucker died in October of 2005 at the age of 78. And she was interviewed. I think this is an interview from the Chicago Tribune, and one of her quotes, she was saying that these images of black young kids acting like gangsters go all around the world. She objected to such lyrics being sold to minors and asked the Federal Bureau of Investigations to launch an inquiry. Now, think, she had the vision, and she was thinking worldwide that how this would affect the image of black people and young black kids. And it's just a shame that she doesn't get enough credit for standing up and being a visionary of what was going to happen to the young black minds and the black community, hence to come. Here we are 20 years later. Another little thing I want to point out in this article, what I think is very, very important. It says, Tucker also focused her irate at Time Warner chair, Gerald Levine. She quote, I told him about the black males, 25% are either in jail or under some judicial regulation. She declared in another Chicago Tribune profile by Sonia Ross, I said, Mr. Levine, how are we going to raise a race of people with no men? Tucker also noted that she had served as surrogate parent to many nieces and nephews, not to whom went down the right path over the years to come to realize the cultural forces and images play a large role in shaping self-esteem. So she was pretty much trying to get these record executives saying, look, you can't let this type of music go out because it's really going to damage the self-esteem to these young black impressionable minds. And of course, this guy right here, Gerald Levine, of course they're not going to care. These white record executives, they know exactly what's going to happen. These people aren't stupid. So when you had this woman standing up saying, look, if you keep letting this music happen, you keep letting these young men put out this type of music, it's going to destroy the self-esteem for generations to come. She went to them personally begging them, please don't fund this type of music. Of course, we all know the outcome. Of course they did, and they were funded even more. So people, think about it. That's why I'm saying, whether you want to point to NWA and say, well, that was the start of, gangsta rap and, how hip hop came and fell off. I tell people, look behind the scenes. Look behind, these devils are behind the scenes funding this, and they're going to keep funding it because they know the damage that it does to us. This is another way that you can hurt the self-esteem of young black people, young black men and women. Hence, you're slowly destroying them off. You're keeping them down. You're keeping them at the bottom. This is another way that they're funding this madness and destruction of black people in the black community. Very, very another important piece of the article that I kind of want to just touch on briefly. It says, Tucker considered it a victory, but Death Row had Suge Knight, when she was going against Time Warner. Now, she met with Suge Knight, and she was accused of conspiracy and extortion as a result of meeting with Suge Knight, at which two recording artists who were also National Political Caucus of the Black Women members, Melba Moore and Dionne Warwick, were also present. Supposedly, the women offered Knight a deal to leave Interscope and sign with a black-owned record company they planned. But Tucker retorted that they had simply asked him to try for more positive messages in his artist's music. He said, Suge Knight, he would need distribution to engineer such a situation. And Moore and Knight agreed then to look into financing for a possible black-owned enterprise. Now, isn't that kind of funny? Because how we think of Suge Knight, and back in the day, these ladies stepped to him and said, we need some more positive images, of black people, rapping in the hip-hop industry. And Suge Knight considered it, but why did he back out of it? You got to think about, he was with Interscope Records. These women stepped to Suge Knight and said, and Suge Knight was like, what, I'll do it, but I need some financing. Now, I believe at that time, especially back in the day, They could have had that financing, but something happened. Something, interrupted them from producing a black-owned distribution a company. And I believe that's where the Tupac and the Biggie come in, them getting murdered. I don't know. That's just speculation on my part. One last point I want to point out. Gangsta rap artists joined in the campaign to ridicule Delores Tucker. In his hit song, How Do You Want It, Tupac Shakur pounced on Miss Tucker. He blasted her with these lyrics, Delores Tucker, you was a motherfucker. Now, I remember that. I remember Tupac doing that, and I was a fan of Tupac, and I didn't agree, and I didn't like how he was, he blasted her on that when she was just trying to say, look, we could do better, and you guys are the pioneers of hip hop, and if you guys just would talk a little bit more positive, it would go a long way for our young people. So I think on that issue, I think Tupac, he was young at that time, and I think over time he did start to mature. So, but I don't agree with him, going after her like that. But this is something peculiar. This next line, he blasted her with lyrics. Delores Tucker. Then let me skip ahead. Then in Eminem 50 Cent hit D12, the white rapper took his turn assaulting her when he belted out, "Tell that see Delores Tucker slut to suck a dick, motherfucker duck. What the fuck?" I don't understand. Why would 50 Cent and Eminem still keep going after Delores Tucker? Here it is. I don't know when that came out, and I don't know when those lyrics were written. But Delores Tucker, she was in her 70s at that time, and she wasn't even really speaking out. Why would you have 50 Cent and Eminem go back and still going after Delores Tucker? And she started this campaign back in the 90s. And you see, you start to realize how these record labels and in this record industry and these white devils, anytime you try to speak out and help your people, they get these people to go land blasted at you, to go straight at you. So I just wanted to touch on Delores Tucker a little bit and try to give people a little context of when NWA started. Everybody wasn't on board. She was out there saying that, if we let this music be promoted, what was going to happen to us. And here we are 20 years later, and you see exactly what happened.